Legends of Signum Warseer is a tabletop war game with miniatures on a hexagonal field. Let's take a quick look at the gameplay and consider a single turn in the middle of the game. The heroes have already brought their allies onto the battlefield. At the start of the turn, the Empire player has 5 cards in his hand. 3 spell cards, which can be used against enemy characters or to activate certain effects, 2 feat cards. If events on the battlefield match the description on a feat card, the player receives the number of victory points indicated on the card. At the beginning of each turn, you must increase your prosperity to the level of income. Prosperity is the current amount of in-game currency that you can use to summon characters onto the battlefield, activate spells, etc. Income is the current maximum amount of prosperity that the player receives at the beginning of the turn. The first thing a player does is take a card from their deck and place it in their hand. The player then uses the Gust of Wind spell to move the hero of Anna Dark 1 hex. Once a card has been played, the player puts it to his graveyard and adds 1 income unit to his hand. When any card enters the graveyard, you must add or subtract the appropriate number of income points. The player now uses an Invocation Rune spell card and puts a minion in the forest terrain. The card used is sent to the graveyard and then increases income by 1. As the income of the Empire faction is now 9, according to the rules, the player draws an additional card from the deck into his hand. As the hand contains lightning strike spells, it's a good time to use it. Before striking, the player pays the specified price to use the spell. In this case, it costs 3 prosperity points. The Valor faction hero has a special ability that cancels an opponent's spell at the cost of his own health points. Thus, Kasaran Share takes 1 wound and cancels the spell Lightning Strike. After the spell has been cancelled, the player reduces his income by 1 unit instead of increasing it, because the income value of the spell card is -1. Now the Empire player casts the spell Unequivalent Exchange, takes away 2 prosperity points for its use, and exchanges Held of Emrys with Sir Domain the Steelwind, placing Sir Domain on the forest terrain. The player moves the card to the graveyard and increases income by 1. Since income is back to 9, the player takes the card again. As his next action, the player activates Anna Dark and attacks Sir Domain. Anna Dark has 2 silver dice in her attack, as we can see from the hero card. However, since Sir Domain is in forest terrain, the forest lowers one of the attacker's dice by 1 level. This means that of the 2 silver dice, 1 silver and 1 bronze dice are now rolled on the attack. The dice roll a miss and a critical hit. Each character has a description for a critical hit. Anna Dark's is Blast. But the terrain properties of the forest allow you to ignore this effect. So Sir Domain the Steelwind only takes a wound from a critical hit and removes 1 armor token. As the next character to activate, the player chooses Belinda the Healing Hand. Belinda steps forward and attacks Sir Domain. Her attack power is equivalent to 2 bronze dice. However, she is in contact with 2 allies who have the Warlord attribute, which boosts the attack and gives an additional silver dice. But their effect is not boosted, so 2 bronze dice and 1 dice die are used to attack. As Sir Domain is in the forest, all attack rolls against him are reduced by 1 level, so Belinda attacks with 3 bronze dice. Belinda's critical hit is a flag, but it is ignored thanks to the properties of the forest. So the centaur only takes 2 wounds. At this point, the Valor player plays a tactics card, forcing Sir Domain to counterattack. On his turn, Sir Domain counterattacks with 2 silver dice. It rolls a miss and a critical hit, inflicting a wound and crippling Belinda stun for 1 turn. She skips the next activation. Since Belinda is immobilized, the Empire player decides to heal her. Despite the fact that she misses the next activation, her last turn is not over yet. Since she is activating next to the altar, a healing check is made. To do this, a dice equal to the rank of Belinda is rolled. A success, and Belinda is healed by 1 unit of health. The player now chooses to activate Deodor the Order Mentor, who advances and attacks Sir Domain. 2 silver dice are used for the attack, but the properties of the forest again lower the level of the dice by 1. As a result, the attack is made with 1 silver and 1 bronze dice. When throwing falls is a miss and a critical hit. When Deodor has a crit, a gold dice is rolled in addition to the attack, and a sword falls on it. As a result, the centaur takes 2 wounds, has no health left, and is sent to the graveyard. The Valor player on his turn puts the character to the graveyard, gains 1 income unit, and takes a card, since his income has reached 9. As one of the Empire's opponents has fallen, the player immediately gains 1 victory point. The Empire player also gains an additional victory point because a feat card has been played. Next, the player flips a Town Hall card, which allows him to activate an additional Deodor and move it into the forest. If a creature enters the forest, its turn ends immediately. The player discards the remaining victory point card and takes 2 points of prosperity for doing so. Next, the player uses the Crown of Healing and places it on the table, adding 2 armor units to his hero Anna. This ends the player's turn, and they draw a feat card in his hand. The turn passes to the player for the Valor. At the beginning of the turn, the player for the Valor restores prosperity to equal the current income. Next, the player draws 1 card from the deck into his hand. The player draws a prediction card for the indicated price of 2 prosperity points. This allows the player to look at the top 3 cards in the deck and take one of them into their hand. The player then puts the card drawn to their graveyard and increases their income to 10. Next, the player uses the Prosperity card, which gives 1 victory point for reaching 10 income. This concludes our brief overview of the gameplay.